again, everyone. Welcome to a brand new season of Longhorn Weekly here from Pluckers, the West Campus location here at 2222 Rio Grande. My name is Craig Way. Happy to have you with us and happy to have you listening all across the Longhorn IMG Radio Network. Now, as Longhorn fans who've been coming out to Pluckers for years with Longhorn Weekly know that by and large, every week when they come out here, they'll be hearing from the head coach, Longhorns head coach Charlie Strong during football season, and of course Shaka Smart during basketball season. Because we're a little over a week out to the season opening game against Notre Dame, we're going a little bit different direction. Coach Strong on the practice field with the team. So what we're going to do is we'll talk a little bit about this 2016 team, but also we'll take a look back at one of the great moments in Longhorn football history. We have some special guests to talk about that 2005 national championship team. Now, one of the guys who is eminently qualified to talk about that team is none other than my broadcast partner, our sideline reporter, lifetime Longhorn Quan Cosby, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I know, for one, you're very excited about what's to come in 2016.
I really am, man. I'm so happy. It was a quick summer, but football season is back. I've heard so many people talk about it. I've went by a couple of practice. I can feel that energy, the football, the fall energy. So I have big expectations for this team coming up, and I'm excited that football season's here again.
Now, you came from the unusual perspective of being a 22-year-old freshman when you did it at the time. So maybe referring you as a freshman back in 05 is different than, say, referring to a freshman like Shane Buechele that everybody's talking about, and yet Tyrone Swoops is a senior, and we saw the last time we saw Tyrone Swoops on the field, he was leading the Longhorns to a win over Baylor, which denied the Bears an opportunity to go to one of the New Year's Bowls, and those two guys have been working very, very hard at the quarterback spot, and one thing that Coach Strong has said is, hey, whoever is going to actually take the first snap on Sunday night, September 4th, it didn't seem to matter as much to him over the fact that they are both going to play, and he feels both will contribute.
Really, and the interesting piece, I guess, is Hurd, Gerard Hurd not being in the mix, because I was a big fan of him. However, Strong, I'm confident that he knows who's going to give them the best chance to win. And putting both guys in, UT's done a little bit of that committee thing, and everybody has their feelings about it. But with the running backs we have, with the O-line, young but growing, man, the receiving core looks super strong, especially on paper. I think both of those guys are going to give us a good chance. They're going to compete. I love the competitive nature. I like both guys going out there, both making plays this summer and, of course, this spring. But I think the biggest thing for me is who's going to lead. Ultimately, we know on defense, Malik is a leader, even as a true freshman. So we believe in true freshmen. There's been true freshman Heisman guys now. So
he seems like an old head as a sophomore now, going into a sophomore season.
Dude, it's unreal. I think we need to put him on the payroll in recruiting too. So we know that true freshmen can do things. It's just a matter of that quarterback position is super important. And Tyrone, although it's been a tough go, he has experience. So Buechele getting in there pushing those guys, I think, helps the team. Competition always helps. So it's interesting to see who walks out there or runs out there Notre Dame game.
You brought up the running back situation. Obviously, Deontay Foreman and Chris Warren are the guys that are kind of at the front of that. Yet we hear about other guys who have had an opportunity to show what they can do in practice, guys like Kirk Johnson and the true freshman, speaking of true freshman, Kyle Porter coming in from the state champion at Katy. Those guys to supplement two really talented workhorses in the backfield in Deontay Foreman and Chris Warren.
And that's what you talk about. You go back to the quarterback position, whether it's Swoops, a veteran guy, or Buechele, who may win it as a true freshman, running backs help that. And we have a plethora of guys who can get things done. The guys, of course, Foreman and
Chris
Warren, who's been there. But then Johnson, when he came in last year, he made plays. Unfortunately, had the injury and didn't get to play as much as he wanted because of their success. But every guy in there can make a play. Every guy in there can add value to that offense. And having a young guy that we could have in Buechele, those are things that help that offense be productive, help the defense get a little break. And again, any weapon we can add on paper in the game, no matter what it is going to help us win games.
There are weapons at the receiving corps. John Burt's a guy I know you've been very impressed with from the start, from the fact when he was a freshman and how he has progressed along.
Man, we have these young receivers. And I told the receivers, I went by practice and I said, on paper, I couldn't play with y'all. And fortunately, I had a good career. Shipley had a good career. I said, we were called, the little guys, and we couldn't play with y'all. But our mentality, y'all couldn't play with us yet. But that's what's changing. Watching these guys make plays. You see the highlights over Twitter and all the things social media has to offer. These guys are ready. They're tired of they're not performing. And now they have the guys who are competing to get them the ball. It's important. They know what they need to do. And pass, as much as those running backs are great, they're going to have to pass the ball in the Big 12. There's some huge weapons out there that can make plays, be productive, and make this offense more balanced and complete.
And whether they're running or passing, they've got to have protection from the offensive line. And those guys are a little bit older. We're talking about a couple of freshman All-Americans on that left side of the line now in Connor Williams and Patrick Vahe as sophomores. Kent Perkins is a senior, and even though some of the guys have been banged up, the offensive line that they project to have on the field for the opening night against Notre Dame has more and more experience coming out.
You're really only as good as your weakest link. However, the offensive line, they don't do many interviews. They never really make the paper, but they're by far the most important piece. If the quarterback doesn't have time, if the running back doesn't have a hole, your offense from the beginning is done. And these guys, their experience, the accolades they've gotten, even as young guys, the leadership they'll have. We were fortunate enough to have the Blaylocks, the Studders, the Sin Lines. They can develop into those type of guys. And as young, hungry guys who want to win, who want to do so much for Coach Strong and the university, they're in a very good place. And thanks to the other school down south, we've got even a little more depth in that position. Young also, but depth.
You've been an offensive guy, but still you kept close tabs on the defensive development as well. You brought up Malik Jefferson, certainly as the preseason choice, as the preseason Big 12 Conference Player of the Year. He's the anchor of that defense.
By far. And anchor, that translates to leadership. The guy on and off the field have showed this entire offseason he can lead. If you just follow his lead, it's really hard for a guy that young. He's so mature for his age. And if you follow his lead on and off the field, he works as hard as anyone. We've seen it. Coach Strong talks about it. Holton Hill, Devontae, these guys, as much as we don't talk about them, I see them in the same. And they made plays last year.
Devontae Davis, guys. Holton Hill, P.J. Locke, these are guys that you feel pretty confident in.
Really
Chris
confident
Boyd.
about. As young as they are, they made plays. And there's some times where that raw talent can be positive. There's times where it's going to hurt us. But for the most part, physically, and that young's, their mentality with, of course, Malik Jefferson's leadership, I think our defense is going to be pretty salty.
All right, now that's a look at what's to come in 2016. When we come back, we'll have the first of our special guests join us alongside Quan Cosby. I'm Craig Way. Glad to have you with us for another season of Longhorn Weekly right here on the Longhorn IMG Radio Network. Under center, McGee, play action, blitz coming, Michael Huff hit it, ball's loose on the ground, picked up by Boone Stutz, the tight end, but he's dropped all the way back at the Aggie 8-yard line. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly here from Pluckers, the West Campus location, and a little bit of throwback there because we have one of the great Longhorn throwbacks with us from the 2005 National Championship team. Jim Thorpe Award winner Michael Huff is alongside. Great to have you with us.
Glad to have me on.
You seemed a little surprised on that highlight there when you came in. That was a game against Texas A&M when you blitzed and hit Stephen McGee and knocked the ball loose and had a fumble on the turf.
I wish I would have picked up the fumble and went and scored, but somehow I was laying on the ground. But they still got it, but it's okay.
I can tell you remember that play.
I do. When I heard it, I was like, oh, was that play? Because I haven't seen it in so long, and when you hear the call of it, it just brings back old memories.
Okay, now before we get into some of these memories, the first memory I've got to ask you is, what was it like for veterans like yourself and the other veterans on that team to be teammates with a 22-year-old freshman? as Quan was at that time.
A little different because he was supposed to come in with our class. So
right.
we knew, it's highly heralded, great DB. I was like, I hope he doesn't come. He's going to take my spot. So when he didn't come, I was happy he didn't come because he would have came in, won a Thorpe. He probably went both ways. Like I said, won a receiver award and everything. So when I was first starting off, I was glad he didn't come. But when he finally came, I said I was excited. I saw, we had such a great playmaker on offense. He made play, down the stretch for us.
I'm starting to wonder if Huff is in sales, man. He made that sound real good.
It's pretty good.
He's full of
He's diversifying his portfolio.
Right. That was the interesting piece about coming in with these guys because we did know each other. We did DJ, all the whole crew, man. It was pretty awesome to almost reunite and see. And they welcomed me with open arms. When I came back, I was pretty bad. I was real bad. But practicing with these guys, I didn't talk smack all the time, but when I did, it usually started with, you're not who I'm seeing in practice, so I'm going to have a good day. So
Wow.
It helped tremendously practicing against the Thorpe winners and the first rounders that I was able to practice against.
Knowing each other made a difference, didn't
When he says he was bad, he was really bad when he first got back.
Really?
I was.
Because he hadn't played football in a while, so it took him a little time to get his feet. But obviously once he finished, he finished as one of the best. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
And it helps. When you have them.
And I've heard Quan a lot talk about the 2005 team, but it's great to have. We're going to have several other guys that were a part of that 2005 team here tonight. And obviously it's a national championship and it's a wonderful moment. But what are the things that stood out to you most about that season, Michael?
I think for me, for the season, it's just everybody bought in. Like just from off-season workouts, from the summer workouts, just everybody bought in. Coming off the game, the Rose Bowl before when we played Michigan, it's like everybody had one goal. I mean, obviously everybody wants to be first-round picks, All-Americans, but we knew, if we focused and we took care of business game in, game out, like I said, all the accolades, they would come. The main thing was just win, like I said, and everything will take care of itself. So for me, it was just how much everybody bought in and everybody had the same goal.
And really, it's what do you mean by bought in is Vince made a bold statement after that game. And the cool piece about that is he made the statement because he was confident in the guys he had surrounding him. Everyone knew it was everybody's job to prove him right. And it's a win-win situation. He made the statement. We knew for the most part he's going to do his part.
Oh, yeah.
And so we all wanted to do our part in helping him, helping the team. Our defense, as much as Vince gets so much love and he deserves it, our defense was pretty special that year. And last I checked, they gave the offense the ball by a stop they made. So it was a total team effort, and it was unreal. That wasn't right for me to come back to and to experience a team like that because – fortunately, I had more afterwards, but still, it wasn't quite that level of team cohesiveness and just a special group.
Mike, I heard people talk about the key moments during that season, and I did remember when folks took me back through that and said, did you look at the schedule before the start of the year and say, hey, there's this game and there's this game? And normally I don't do that. Normally it's, hey, you zero in on the game at hand and all that. And I know Coach Brown tried to do the same thing with you guys. Still in all, Oklahoma had won 5 in a row going into that game. And you had to go to Columbus, Ohio early in the season. Did you and did the other veterans, as well as maybe some of the younger guys, take a look at that schedule in advance saying, yeah, we got to deal with OU, but before that, we have to go to Columbus, Ohio, and deal with Ohio State.
Yeah, we definitely knew, but obviously we didn't want to say anything. Let's say we didn't want the young guys to think we were looking ahead. Like I said, thinking, looking past other teams. But we knew that when it came down to it, we'd have to win at Ohio State. Let's say we'd have to, finally beat Oklahoma since it's been a while. So we knew those were the critical games that we had to win. And so all summer, all offseason, let's say we knew like those were the games to prove. I think Ohio State might have been top 5.
Yep.
They're
number 3 in the country.
Number 3 in the country. So we knew, and you say going in there, home. I think they had some streak record or two playing at night or something.
And it had 105,000 fans there for that game. That atmosphere was just incredible. But as players, you guys always wanted that opportunity.
Oh,
yeah. You really would thrive on that type of environment, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, because we knew to be the best, you had to beat the best. So we wanted, everybody's best shot. Like we didn't want USC to lose to Notre Dame, let's say, during that last play where, Reggie pushed them across the goal line. We wanted USC to win. We wanted to play what supposedly was the best team in the nation. Some people were saying the best team ever. So it's like we wanted to play them to show that, we were the best team.
Yeah, and Quan, I know, like you said, even on the offense, is much as important as that final drive was in the pass, Vince to Limas to beat Ohio State in the corner. I mean, there was a lot of confidence you could see that was building as the course of the season went along, and that play had a lot to do with it.
Well, and even more, you think about it, I, of course, argue our defense was number one in the country. Well, Ohio State's was number two. They were very good. A lot of high draft picks and all the above, number three in the country. So our offense knew we had our hands full, and we were still a work in progress at that point outside of course, Vince's success. So we on the road, that was probably the biggest thing, the communication. How we're talking right now, we could not hear each other in that stadium. They were extremely loud. So all those different pieces, we knew we had our hands full. We were up for the challenge. Of course, I was a freshman, Jamal, Henry. Lyman's made the play, but there's a lot of young guys. So there's so many different elements. And you think about the character and the flavor about that season and that game. It added to it being an unbelievable year.
All right, coming up, we are going to take a look back at that Rose Bowl game itself with USC and a couple other key highlights of that. Michael Huff, Quan Cosby with us. It is a kickoff edition and also a throwback edition of Longhorn Weekly, and we'll continue in a moment. It's back to Colt. He fires over the middle, caught inside the 20, 10, 5, touchdown Texas. Quan Cosby. Cosby scored. The Longhorns take the lead with 16 seconds remaining in the ball game. To Longhorn Weekly, that highlight was actually not from 2005. It was from the final game of the 2008 season, the Fiesta Bowl of 2009, the final time that Quan Cosby touched the football, the game-winning touchdown pass from Colt McCoy on that.
That was pretty, storybook. That was kind of almost Disney. It's not too often you play at this school, you play in a BCS game, you're playing against Ohio State again, ironically, and you score the game-winning touchdown. You dream about it, you envision it, you hope for it, but for it to work out like that, it was pretty dang special.
Now, what some folks may not realize is there was a little more on that call that happened right after when Quan scored the touchdown. We actually have this right here. Take a listen to this. Now, this is the actual call again of the touchdown, but it's also what happened right after. Take a listen to this. First down and 10. Clock now moving. Under 30 seconds remaining in the ball game. McCoy from the shotgun. Longhorns need to snap it in a hurry. It's back to Colt. He fires over the middle, caught inside the 20, 10, 5, touchdown Texas, Quan Cosby. Cosby scored. The Longhorns take the lead with 16 seconds remaining in the ball game.
What a nice pass across the middle. Colt had time. They did a great job of allowing Colt to have time. Cosby's been penalized for excessive celebration for diving into the end zone.
On the offense, excessive demonstration. Penalty will be enforced on the kickoff.
So that was actually what happened. That was the complete call of what happened there. The Quan's dive into the end zone there. There was the excessive celebration call. Fortunately, the rule was different back then, because if the way the rule is interpreted now and enforced now were in play back then, that touchdown would not have counted. It would have been brought back to the point where you had the little leap into the end zone there.
Absolutely terrible call. Absolutely terrible call. If they saw my landing, it wasn't a showboating thing. I didn't Reggie Bush land. I had grass in my helmet and all that, so I was just trying to get there. And so I think that was a really bad call. But like the 4th and 2 play in 2005, the coolest thing and what I see developing on this team is Arakpo and Roy Miller came to me and they said, for one, that's a horrible call. 2, we have your back. And even after that, those guys went and got a sack on the quarterback.
Because it was 15 yards enforced on the kickoff, and Ohio State had 16 seconds and 2 timeouts.
And 2 timeouts, and they went and got a sack. And that's what the Michael Huffs and the Arakpos and all these guys, you talk about teams and special teams and how they come together to have each other's back. That was huge for me because I felt terrible knowing the dynamics of it, the 15 yards, good field position, and all the above. So horrible call by those guys, but fortunately my guys had my back.
Well, and I should point out, in the interest of fairness, Keith Moreland, my analyst at the time, was talking about that. He followed up by saying, that does not look like celebration to me. They should not be penalizing him on that. So that went
not
away.
At all.
No, I was at the game that day. I came back, obviously not in uniform. I was on the sideline, but as soon as you did it, I was so proud. I think that was the DB coming out of you. It should have been the DB. So that was the DB sportsmanship, showboating. So I was excited. I was happy for it.
Do you think Quan could have been a great defensive back, Michael?
Oh yeah, no question. Especially playing under Coach Akina.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point right there, everybody.
You always pointed out, Mike, that Coach Aquina did so much for your career to set it up also for you to have the career you had in the National Football League to make you tougher, faster, stronger, mentally tougher, all those kinds of things, and what he did for you.
Oh, yeah, Coach Aquina. I mean, if it wasn't for Coach Aquina, I wouldn't be sitting up here today. Like I said, I wouldn't have made it as far as I did. So I know I owe everything to Coach Aquino. He just knew which buttons to hit on different people because he knows, every player is different. Everybody has their certain buttons to, to get them play or get them to do certain things. So he just knows his players so well. And so I don't know how he's so good. I don't know how he does it, but he just knows.
Let me get the thoughts of both of you about, and I'm going to ask our other guest also what stands out to them about that Rose Bowl game with USC. One of the things that comes to mind for me is going into it, all of the hype, all of the accolades on USC, and they won the BCS title the year before. They'd been an AP national champion the prior to that, and I believe the experts said they were like a 10-point favorite. It almost seemed like it was a foregone conclusion, and yet Coach Brown kept saying, that's fine, let them believe it. You guys just kind of slow played it the whole week and talked about how great USC was, all the while preparing yourselves for what you were going to do.
What you could see was the body language of everyone practicing. We had some great practices here in Austin. Then we went to L.A. and had equally great practice. So, of course, on TV and perceptually, we didn't stand a chance. But the look I saw in their eyes, the look I saw in our offensive guys' eyes, I knew that it was going to be a special night for us.
Oh, yeah. I think for me it was just we were finally underdogs. I don't know if we were against Ohio. I'm sure since they were playing at home, we were probably underdogs. But we just didn't know what that underdog feeling felt like for so long. And for us to hear it for a month, leading up until the Rose Bowl, like they were the best team ever. Like I said, they can beat anybody. I think they were comparing them to NFL teams. Yep. They could beat some of the bad
greatest
NFL
dynasty
teams
of all time and all that stuff.
Yeah, so for us to hear that the whole month leading up into the Rose Bowl, I think that just added fuel to the fire. And we knew in that locker room that we were going to win. There was really no doubt, never 4th and 2. Let's say it didn't matter. Let's say we knew we were going to win that game.
Take everybody through the 4th and 2 because it's obviously that without the 4th and 2 stop of Lendale White, Vince can't take the offense back down the field, or at most he's going to get it with only a few seconds left. He's even using the timeouts. But what went through everybody's mind about what you had to do and what you were looking for on the play?
I think in huddle, we just knew, like I said, Lendale White was running downhill every play. Like I said, we couldn't stop him all game. And then, like I said, we looked up and saw he was in the huddle. Reggie Bush was on the sideline. So, it was kind of a no-brainer. Like I said, they were going to give the ball to Lendale. He was going to run downhill. So it's, our D-line, like I said, they stepped up. Like I said, they told us they were going to make a play. They were going to keep the linemen off of the backers and off of the safeties, and they did a great job so we could just kind of clean it up. So I give all the credit to D-line on that play.
If Reggie Bush had been on the field, might it have given you guys just a little bit of pause about where you were going to position yourselves to try to stop the run if Bush had been out there even as a decoy?
Maybe a little bit, because if he would have split out somewhere, like I said, I would have been out of the box. I would have been out covering him somewhere, wherever he was at. But like I said, our D-line still would have been in there. Like I said, linebacker still would have been in to make a play. So I still think somehow, some way, it was destined. Like I say, we're going to make a play. We're going to win that game.
And Quan, did you feel once the stop was made, this thing's done, we're going to go down and score and win?
We'd seen it. We'd seen that story. We've seen that chapter before. Vince and the way our offense answered when those guys, we fed off each other. We told them, and I remember Ben said, he said, give us the ball back. We'll go take care of business. Now, it took 4th down and goal, but
and you made the catch on a 4th down conversion, right?
I did. Got a little face mask. Appreciate that safety. Was it Darnell Bing? Appreciate that. He still argues it didn't happen.
Right.
It was clear. But no, really, that energy, like you said, it added fuel to the fire. They finished that, and we just fed off of it. We knew we had time. We were very confident, and we had made plays all game long. It was, 41-38? That's a high-scoring game. So we had made plays all game long and just knew we needed to make a few more and finish what we went back to that summer of me getting here for minor league baseball we talked about and destined to do. So it was cool.
Quan, obviously you're very close and around the program. Michael, you've stayed close to the program. So what kinds of things and wisdom and knowledge do you impart to the young guys or the guys on this particular Longhorn team, how they can get this thing going the direction that everybody wants it to go?
For me, it's just blocking out everything on the outside, because obviously you hear good and bad, like I said, on Twitter, Instagram, things like that. You hear about how good you are, such a great player. You come in 4 or 5 star recruits, but then you have the bad side of the social media, everybody telling you how bad you are. You win 4 games, 5 games the previous years. So for me, it's just block out the good and the bad and just play for each other. I say y'all are the ones that are grinding together all off season, all summer. So just play for the man next to you, and I say trust your coaches, because you have some of the best coaches in the country. So just trust them, play for each other, and everything will take care of itself.
Mike, Quan, thanks for dropping by. We appreciate it. We'll see you before long.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Michael Huff, Quan Cosby. We have more special guests coming when we have our kickoff edition of Longhorn Weekly continuing right here on the Longhorn IMG Radio Network. All the dreams, all the hopes for the national championship come down to this play. Back to throw. Vince looks under pressure. He'll tuck it in and run. Vince to the 5. Young. Touchdown, Texas. Touchdown, Vince Young. He's done it again. Vince Young has given the Longhorns the lead with 19 seconds to play in the game. We welcome you back to Longhorn Weekly. And as we mentioned, it's a special look back at the 2005 National Championship team. And the man who was the coach of that Texas Longhorn football team, and a man with whom I hosted this program for 13 years, joins us now. Coach Mack Brown, who, of course, all he did was ease right on in seamlessly into the world of network television. He joins us now from the road. Mack, thanks for the time. Great to hear from you. How are you?
Craig, I'm doing great. Excited about football season like everybody else, and can't wait to get going.
You know, one thing I mentioned right before we lost contact with you is how you have seamlessly transitioned from the world of coaching into the world of network television. Now, it looks seamless on television, the way that you've transitioned into it. Was it as easy for you as it appears on TV for you to make that transition?
Craig, it really has been. When I came to Texas, John Mackovic got out of the way and made sure that I was able to do the things I needed to do. So I thought it was really important when Charlie Strong came that I get out of the way and go into the witness protection program and be available for him if he needed me to call and ask questions about anything. But I didn't want to be around local media. I didn't want to be visible. And then, of course, when my job started in the fall with ESPN and ABC, I didn't have any choice. But I do think the opportunities I had with Longhorn Network the last 3 or 4 years that I coached probably helped prepare me for this more, Craig, than I could have ever expected.
All right, now I've got a couple of your former players from the 2005 National Championship team with us here. Tim Crowder and Justin Blaylock are both with us right now. They're both on the headset. So when I mention those names of those two guys, because they're going to hear you say this, Mac, what immediately comes to mind about Tim Crowder and Justin Blaylock to you?
Well, the first thing about Tim Crowder is he did say that we're going to quit USC while we were up for the Heisman. So I had to say, Tim, keep your mouth shut. They won 36 straight. And then he hurt his knee in practice and played wonderfully throughout the game. Justin Blaylock, like Tim, one of the best players to ever play at Texas. That offensive line, all those guys played in the NFL, and you're probably not going to have a great team without a great offensive line and a pass rusher. And Tim was our tough guy at defensive end and pass rusher, and Justin was the guy that could play at all 5 positions. He was very smart, but very tough and a great blocker, and did just happen to pick up the blitz on the last play offensively that we had the ball and led Vince into score.
Tim, I've heard a lot of the guys from the team talk about how calm Coach Brown was in the week leading up to the Rose Bowl. Was he really calm with the confidence that you guys had? What was that week like leading up to it, and the message that Coach Brown and the coaching staff had?
It was an awesome week. Coach Brown did a great job with us. He just kept everything relaxed, and that's all you can ask for as players, is just keep us relaxed, keep us all loose. And, of course, Vince Young there, he's a big jokester, so that kept everybody loose and kept us all free. And once we went out there, we played free as well.
Justin,
well, Tim, we thought we were going to win the game, right? I mean,
exactly.
We thought we had the best team.
Exactly.
Simply put.
We just said keep our mouth shut, win the game. We'll do our talking after the game's over.
Exactly.
And Mac, that's a great point, and I joked about it with Michael Huff and Quan just a few minutes ago when we talked about the fact that you guys kind of, in as much as you can keep a low profile or a lower profile going into a BCS championship game in the Rose Bowl, like you were because USC was getting all the accolades. Was it a challenge for you and for the coaching staff to make sure that this very confident football team that you had could remain respectful and without giving the Trojans any kind of bulletin board material, and to take it a step further, to give them all the accolades that the guys did?
Well, Craig, I think number one, that this was a very smart football team and a smart group, and they knew how good USC was. They had 2 Heisman Trophy winners. They'd won 36 straight games, so it was a fun challenge for us. And Bill Little kind of came up with the deal that let's be like the city of Troy. Let's come in the wooden horse. Let's keep our mouth shut. Let's jump out. Let's win the game, and then we can do our talking because nobody expects us to win. So we kind of played that role. And the other thing is that our guys knew they were very good. I'll never forget, we beat, I think, Oklahoma State at home, and I'm trying to get the guys up in the dressing room at the end of the game, and they're all over watching Notre Dame USC on TV. Mm-hmm. And they're pulling so hard for USC to win, and it took me back a little bit, and that was when Leinart pushed Reggie Bush over the goal line right at the end to win the game with seconds left, and they all cheered. And I said, what's this about? And they said, Coach, we want USC. We don't want anybody else. We want this USC team in the Rose Bowl. So I knew at that point in midseason that this team was focused. They knew what they wanted, and they knew how to get there and get it done, and they did.
Justin, how much of a feeling of unanimity was it about how much you guys wanted to play USC and to the old thing about to be the best, you got to beat the best type of thing?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest part of it. We were a very prideful group. And I mean, like you said, I mean, the old Ric Flair adage, to be the man, you got to beat the man. We didn't want, anyone to be able to say, they beat a second-tier team or anything like that. And, the best way to find out, what kind of team we really were was to go out and, beat the unbeatable team.
Mack, you have often talked about how intelligent your guys were, what a smart football team, and others would say also very well coached, but you always talked about how smart these guys were, and it made it easier to coach. Was Justin Blaylock one of the more cerebral football players you think you had?
Yes, he was a wonderful combination of smart, big, physical, tough, and loved to play. He was passionate. This team loved to practice. The defense loved to try to stop the offense, and they picked at each other in the dressing room, and they laughed and had fun. And Justin was one of those guys. He could play any of the 5 positions. He could play them really well, but he also loved the University of Texas, and all these guys did, and they wanted to win the first national championship in 35 years. And when you're standing out on that platform in the middle of the Rose Bowl right after you beat Michigan, and Vince Young says, we'll be back. I mean, this was a very confident team, but they could always back up what they said, and Justin was one of those guys that could always do that. He was quiet. He was tough. But what I loved about this team was the passion that they had about practice and play.
Mack, I asked Quan and Michael about this as well, that when at the start of the season it would be easy, and fans certainly do this, media does it, when they look at a schedule and say, well, there's a big game, and coaches, you have to take each game, you have to look at Louisiana Lafayette, the first game of the year, and say, hey, that's important, and move on from there. But how crucial was it for your guys to be able to embrace that, understanding they were going to have to win in Columbus, Ohio, in front of 105,000 fans in that long winning streak, and at night where they hadn't lost, before you could even get to thinking about snapping a 5-year losing streak to Oklahoma?
Yeah, well, Craig, number one, I think that if Ohio State had beaten us that night, they would have played USC for the national championship. They were that good. And in the summer, once again, early summer workouts, Vince Young puts on the grease board downstairs. Anybody who wants to beat Ohio State, meet me at the field at 7 o'clock that night, and the entire football team showed up. So this was a team of destiny. They understood their goals. They understood that they didn't want anything to get in the way of those goals. After we beat Ohio State, they knew we had a chance, but we still had that awful losing streak to Oklahoma. After we beat Oklahoma 45-12 or whatever it was, I think then they knew We just had to do our business, but they started looking at the national championship game after the Oklahoma game, which was very unique. And even on Sundays, we started comparing our stats, not to the team that we had played or the next week team. We started comparing our stats to USC every Saturday just to make sure that our guys kept their focus on the end.
Mack, the one other thing I want to ask you to talk about with these guys, and I'm going to visit with them a little more, but I want to get your thoughts on it's well known by now at least some of the things that you said to them in the locker room after defeating USC, among those being don't let this be the highlight moment of your life or the highest point of your life. I want to give you a chance to explain that, because some folks would say, my goodness, you've won a national championship, you've dethroned a national champion, you've ended this long winning streak, and now you're standing at the top of the mountain for the first time in 35 years. How could it not be this highlight moment? And yet you kind of helped a lot of these guys put it into the perspective that they needed to go on and become the successes that they have become. Can you shed a little light on that?
Well, Craig, the first thing I said was, don't mess up tonight. And you go back to our Olympic swimmer last week that had the awful incident in Rio, and now no one's talking about his gold medal. They're talking about all the things that have happened that night that were bad after the gold medal. I didn't want anything to take away from what these guys had accomplished for the state of Texas, for the University of Texas, because we were all so proud that we brought the national championship in football back for the first time in 35 years. It was really important. Secondly, I thought that this doesn't need to be the end. It needs to be the beginning. And we had seniors, some that would play pro football, but some that would not. And I didn't want them at 40 years old laying around without jobs talking about how they played against USC. I thought, let's take this moment and let's use it, you young ones, to try to win another one next year. If you're going to the pros, try to win a Super Bowl now. Don't let this be the best thing that can happen in sports. It's a wonderful night for us. But let's don't stop here. And for the guys that may never play again, help it make you a better father, a better husband, a better person in the community. And it's funny now, 10 years out, that so many of the guys thought I was nuts that night and have come back now and said, Coach, we finally understand after being married, having children, what you're talking about.
Mack, we appreciate the time as always. It's great to visit with you. I know you've got a busy schedule getting ready to kick off this season for ESPN. We'll continue to enjoy watching you, and we'll look forward to visiting with you again. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Craig. They're going to honor the national championship team at halftime of the Texas-Notre Dame game, and I'll be there for that. Can't wait. Want the 100,000+ people that are there cheering on the Longhorns for this great matchup to make sure that they give the great welcome back to such a great football team and all the honor they brought us.
Mack, thanks for the time.
Thanks, Craig. See you, Tim.
All right, see you, Coach.
See you, Justin.
All right. That is Mack Brown joining us now. Tim Crowder and Justin Blaylock will be back with me. We'll be back to wrap up this week's season premiere edition of Longhorn Weekly when we continue in a moment.
Matt Leinart back to pass, pumps, sets up, now under pressure. Time will run out on this play. Leinart looks right, throws downfield, it's incomplete. The ball game is over. The Texas Longhorns have won it. A championship. 35 years in the waiting, but 8 years in the building under Mack Brown. The Texas Longhorns are college football's national champions.
But what are the things that stand out to you about that season as well as that game? Tim, let me start with you.
The main thing that stands out for me is that, it was such a grind that whole season. A lot of people don't realize that how much we grind for that moment. And I can just remember in the all-season program in the cold winter, and we would all say, we need to get back there. We need the eye on the prize is always on the championship. It wasn't anything else. I know we want to say that we got to beat this team or that team, take it one game at a time, but, we knew we had the talent to repeat again. And, I can just remember in Los Angeles the year before, I'm telling, locals out there, hey, we're going to be coming back here, so, get ready to see me again. So, it was such a grind, and, going against Justin every day, and, he was like my rival in practice. I was like, I got to beat Justin, so and we best of friends. And that was, we might have a little fight or two in practice, and we'll go eat at Pluckers or somewhere afterwards.
So, Justin, did you guys really like practice as much as Coach Brown said you did?
No. I think we enjoyed, each other.
Yeah.
The competition factor. There were parts of practice that were nice. All the team stuff that was pretty cool. We're going against the guys that are the best in college football. So on a normal week, Saturday is pretty easy. I've gone against Tim, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or what have you. By most game days, I wouldn't say I'm out there just relaxing, but a player that's not as good as this guy. And I think we really enjoyed, that aspect, seeing how hard we could push ourselves, how good we could be.
Justin Blaylock, Tim Crowder, appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thanks for reminiscing and looking back, and I know you're looking forward to this brand new season of Longhorn football.
Definitely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, Tim Crowder, Justin Blaylock with us. Hey, want to remind you that the season premiere of Longhorn Weekly with Charlie Strong comes up Thursday night, September 2nd, 2 days before the season opener, or I guess I should say Thursday night, September 1st, 3 days before the season opener when the Longhorns take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Thanks to Mike Pirtle helping out here on site, and Jack Condon, our producer, back at the IMG studios. For all of us here, I'm Craig Way. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to a brand new season of Longhorn football, and we'll see you next week on Longhorn Weekly.